suppose because we're going through this kind of weather at the moment, it's why I feel it's so important that when there isn't any, we can be here, we can bring you some pictures live from Africa. I hope my books didn't get wet, but I think it should be fine. We have the sounds of many frogs as a background chorus for us at the moment, more so than the birds, and very often it's more birds than anything else. But with this kind of rain, the frog calls become the symphony, and that is because a lot of these frogs are what we call crash breeders, but crash breeders, because only when we have this kind of rainfall, when we have these heavy rains, when the puddles form and there's enough water for them to be able to lay their eggs, and there's enough water for the tadpoles to go through their metamorphosis to become frogs. And there's some really incredible things that happen. And I know I'm talking about frogs while we're watching a leopard, but I think it's appropriate because our background noise to this leopard at the moment, if I keep quiet, which I'm not going to do because I'm telling you about frogs, but if we just listen, we'll hear the francolins going to bed, and we'll hear some bubbling casinas and some clicking frogs and some ranas. There are a bunch of, probably a dozen different frogs calling. And what it is they need to find mates and mate, hatch while up of this race for the frogs to go through their metamorphosis to become frogs from a tadpole before the puddles dry up. And there's an incredible thing that happens, because there are some tadpoles that start off vegetarian if there's enough water, and they'll go through their life cycle being vegetarian as long as there's enough water. But if the water starts drying up, the weirdest thing is that some of them turn cannibalistic, because that little boost of protein by eating their brothers and sisters that are flailing in the oxygen depleted ponds that are being boiled by the sun, that little bit of protein tends to speed up the metabolism so much that they're able to, at least for some of them, become adult frogs, whereas if they didn't, none of them would survive. So one of nature's amazing ways of twisting the little tail a little bit. And another interesting thing about these crash breeders is that because the time period, the time frame is so limited and the time frame is so critical, is that you'll get a lot of males calling, trying to attract females. And very, very often there are so many males calling that they're trying to outcompete each other. They're trying to outdo each other, that they don't actually notice the females approaching so that they can get closer to mate with them. And there are always going to be some frogs that don't call, that sit behind the males that are calling, and all they're really looking out for are those females that are approaching. And sometimes it's the quiet ones that get to mate because they're more attentive to the females that are coming in as opposed to the males that are trying to outdo the next male next to them when they're calling. So one of those lessons in life is that be careful of the quiet ones. And having said that, with our lazy leopard, I don't like using the word lazy, but it was a nice alliteration. But with our leopard with a full belly, preparing to spend the night wherever he wants. I think there might be some hyena coming around later. They might be picking up on some scent, especially since he did defecate earlier, not too far from here. And that scent is certainly going to waft on the wind and draw the attention of some of the hyena in the area. The hyena den is not very far from here. We got Rebecca's Road, if they're still at the den, Rebecca's Road just behind us or behind him. If you go on from him another 50 yards is the start of Rebecca's Road, and when you go up there you get to the hyena den. So there is possibly going to be hyena that are going to be coming around later, sniffing around to see what he's done. I'm hoping we can sit here a little while longer, but it is a bit of a drizzle starting, and once again another wave of rain that is coming over us. Very heavy cloud again. That might even mean that we have to wait until we can go back to Manuleti, but as long as it's not raining, we'll sit here. But if it does start coming again, I'm going to have to make a dash for it. We're very lucky. I suppose one of the luckiest things is that we are actually that close to camp that I could rush back to camp rather than go to Little House on the Prairie or the little shelter that we have. The only drawback of that was that things got kind of wet that we needed to actually take the camera off and dry things up a little bit before we came out again. Yeah, starting to rain again. We often get asked the question, what do the animals do when it rains? So it's actually nice to be able to sit with the leopard and see what he does with the little bit of rain that's falling. And to be honest, he actually hasn't done anything. That little squall that we had earlier when we had to rush back to camp was a pretty heavy rain. It got very, very wet very quickly, and he didn't even bother. He didn't even move. He was quite happy to just sit there, and it doesn't bother them at all. I mean, you've got to remember that animals have been exposed to the conditions and the elements all their lives. They don't know any different. And they don't necessarily always have to get to cover. So we're going to have to get to cover, although we've got a few minutes left of drive. Unfortunately, the rain is starting again, and we're going to need to go back. So I think I'm going to have to maybe say goodbye now, because the cloud that is moving in from the south right now is getting very, very, very dark. And I don't even know if we're going to have an opportunity to get back to camp before this is over. But I'm going to be able to make it back to camp and say goodbye, and that's about it. We have to end the drive a little bit early. Well, as soon as it starts getting heavy, it's drizzling a bit and it's getting a bit damp, but I'm going to hang in until the very, very last minute and then head back. Here it is. All right. Whoa, I maybe waited a little bit too long, but here it is. So, folks, this is going to have to be a goodbye, because it's now going to be very, very dark with this rain coming in. Mvula, you can see how his ears are going a bit flat. The rain is starting. The rain is coming in. I've got to put my other hat on my other hat. I don't want my new hat to get too wet. The pump house, this is a pump house that's bringing water from underground, from a well, and pumping water to the lodge, to Vuyatela and Gallagher Lodge, which are part of Juma. But oh, this is heavy rain coming in, and we better go. Right. Pardon? Yes, okay, sorry, goodbye. We've got to say goodbye, it's getting wet. Love you lots, and thanks for joining me. I hope you've enjoyed this leopard as much as we have, and I hope too that maybe some of you will be able to get out here to Africa one day to experience this. But oh, this is a big rain coming. Yeah, see my two hats. I'm wearing two hats. I've got a dual personality tonight. There, bye-bye Mvula. We love you, boy. Thanks so much. You are a star.